Okay, there we go. Good evening, everyone. I'm constitutional attorney Katherine Henry. I'm going to wait just a little bit here to see. Oh, there it goes. The watch count wasn't quite working yet, and I wanted to make sure that if people were watching and waiting to join us, that they were going to be able to do that, and I wouldn't get started talking about all the good details before people had a chance to join us here. So in the meantime, since my motion and my brief is hot off the presses here, I'm going to just do some old-fashioned stapling, and that way we'll be able to talk about what it is that I was working on. You can't use that version at all then, because it's not redacted. Nothing's redacted in it. Yeah, the whole thing. So you got to use a different one. Start with the file that I redacted, because it's not just that one. Thank you. Okay, so my technical team, aka my husband right now, is putting online for everyone to see the exhibits and motion and brief that were filed today in the court on my arrest case. And there are some things, that do need to be redacted, because there were some pieces of evidence that had some people's home addresses and things like that, people that weren't even relevant to the case. No need to put their home addresses up there for the public to see. So anyway, in just a minute, hopefully, on our website, all of those documents will be available for you to view as we're going through this. At the very least, by the time we're done here, they would be up on there. And in just a moment here, I'm going to get started on giving everyone the update. So I feel like I'm forgetting something. I probably am, and this is totally not scripted, although a lot of what I've been doing in the last year has not been exactly scripted either. But of course, that 5 minutes I had in the Michigan Supreme Court this year, I did spend probably 50 hours preparing for that 5 minutes. And I spent a good couple of hours preparing for my 2-minute speech that Maya gave me at the state capitol on December 23rd. So aside from that, though, I guess it's harder for me to prepare a short speech than it is a longer speech. But anyway, I did have my hearing, my very first hearing, which would be in a criminal case. It's an arraignment. I had that hearing on this Monday, 8:15 in the morning, Allegan County District Court. It was in person, because a courtroom appearance is quite challenging for me to do by Zoom. Not sure if many of you know this, but when I found out that the Michigan Supreme Court was going to be holding the hearing in September by Zoom, I kind of freaked out because of my hearing disability. Everybody's faces are super small and hard to see, and I read lips. And I had to contact the Supreme Court clerk and ask him what it is that I could do, or if I could let them know, because one of the chief concerns you have as an attorney is what if the justices try to interrupt you to ask you questions? You have to be prepared for that, and you have to show them respect and allow them to do that and be able to answer them. But if you're not aware that they're speaking to you and you might speak right over top of them, that's not a good thing. So anyway, similar considerations happen in a trial court setting, and certainly where my freedom is on the line and I'm facing jail time if the deputies get their way. I need every possible opportunity to participate in this court hearing. Hey, Mike, you're not really good at whispering. Do you know that? You too. So anyway, Oh, I was wondering what wonderfulness I had on the board behind me. So the hearing was itself a little uneventful. I will probably go into details on that in just a minute, but well, let me tell you that I'm going to go into the brief first. I'm going to go into what I filed because it's going to explain quite a bit of everything anyway. And then I can tell you what happened on Monday and what will be happening on February 4th and February 9th in my case, my criminal case, because I am such a criminal trying to circulate those petitions on public property. So what I filed today was a motion to dismiss. For those of you who are legal nerds, it would be a motion for summary disposition under Michigan Court Rule 2.116. Our Michigan Court rules have 10 different ways or reasons why you might file a motion to dismiss. And a lot of times they're not necessarily pertinent in various types of cases. But in my case, I filed essentially, there are 4 different motions, but I combined them all into one. 4 out of the 10 apply to my situation. So one thing I want to say is, first of all, I want to tell you about what happened. It's so, what's been happening to us since, decades has been unconstitutional. But certainly what's been happening to us throughout this whole COVID stuff has been grossly unconstitutional. And we see little highlights, right? We saw, a lot of stories and news coverage for Carl the Barber and Operation Haircut and, restaurants that were staying open, or, Jimmy's Roadhouse in Newaygo, or the Big Boy in Sandusky, which is now the Something Family Restaurant, I believe, in Sandusky, Michigan. We have various places that have been, the incidents have been sensationalized and we know about it. Truly, the theft of our freedom has been on a much more grand scale than what most people even realize. Of course, the media is not going to cover that. Even the good media doesn't, always hear about it or cover it. Certainly things with the election have demonstrated how government officials are violating their oaths of office. But what happened in my case is good in one sense, because of all the people in the world that they're going to mess with, obviously I'm the one that can help me the best. So I get asked every single day, still to this day, and have since April, can you please help me on this situation? Stand Up Michigan has a lot going for them. They have, they have a lot of financial supporters. They have a lot of, just traction in terms of getting the word out there and getting their message out. They have everybody wearing their shirts and their hats and their, the logo stuff and things like that. The various, projects that they've had, their freedom festivals and the Unlock petition. A lot of people know what they're doing. There's a lot of other people though, and they don't have an attorney that I know of that's ready and able to fight those, freedom cases, so to speak. There's several, whether it's some restaurants that are reaching out to me, or township, trustees, or people on school boards, or county commissions, or just individuals that are being fired for exercising their God-given rights, or people that are being criminally charged for living, whether it's opening their business when they shouldn't, supposedly, or it's going into a public place without wearing a mask, whatever it is. Okay, there's a lot going on right now, and a lot of people are hurting because of our government. Sorry, guys, I totally forgot to turn my phone on silent. But what my goal is, what my hope is, that you can take the motion that I wrote, my motion for summary disposition or my motion to dismiss, and the brief that I wrote in support of that, and use those as templates, because so many stinking laws were broken by these deputies. It blows my mind that hopefully this will be able to serve as a big enough template that no matter what you're going through, you can use it as a reference to help fight your fight. Now, would it be better in your mind if I would just be able to run alongside you and represent you in whatever your case is? I understand that's probably what you would prefer, or any attorney to be able to do that. Would it be better yet if the government officials and judges and everybody involved just got it and they understood that's not appropriate to do? Great, it's what we want them to do. But we got to do the best with what we have. And so I'm trying to give you tools to be able to fight the fight the best that you can, because I am only one person. I do have a team of volunteers that is continuing to help me fight to restore freedom here in Michigan. And we have some big projects in the works. They're all moving along quite nicely, and I'll do another video update about that. But what you need to know is that this case can serve truly, first of all, as hopefully an inspiration to you that no matter what you're going through, that you can fight back appropriately. And then as part of that, that you can know better how to do that, and to be able to know some of the laws and some of the cases and court rules, whatever it is that you need to have at your disposal, the tools that you need to be able to fight back and defend your freedom. That's what my goal is in all of this. And so that, well, let me see. I'm going to see if I can do some screen sharing today. Well, you saw I think the beginning screen image, and hopefully when we have the documents uploaded on the website, you'll be able to see the photos that we sent into the court too as part of the exhibits. But my goal is that none of you have to walk away with bruises all over your body and contusions and cuts and lacerations and swelling because law enforcement or some other kind of government agent didn't understand the way the Constitution is supposed to work. I want to save you from that. That is my goal. So with that being said, what a lot of people know is that what I was charged with is trespassing. So really what it entails is that I went down to Allegan County, Layton Township. I had, for those of you who don't know, I wrote the Restore Freedom Initiative Constitutional Amendment Petition to better secure our freedom here in Michigan. And although we didn't get enough signatures because of events just like this, we were going strong with that in November. So we knew that we needed to focus a lot on Election Day and to be able to have thousands of volunteers all across the state at their polling precincts to be able to collect signatures, because obviously if you're at the polling precinct, you're a lot more likely to run into registered voters. And you could put out signs and people will come up to you according to their voter preference, essentially. So it's a lot better than a cold call, right? So we had some volunteers down there in a small town, and I got a text, a couple of texts, and then we had a phone call. Essentially what was happening is that they were being threatened with being arrested for circulating our petition. And this would be so helpful if I had those photos, Mike.
You want me to print those front and back?
The photos probably not front and back, but all the other documents, yes. Let me see, guys, if I could do a screen share here for a second, because this would be, well, this would be helpful. Okay. So, I gotta think of what I'm trying to show you guys. Okay. Okay, so hopefully I can't see you guys anymore, but hopefully you can see me just fine. I have to figure out where Zoom is. There we go. Okay, so, and yeah, I'm gonna do it. Well, hopefully it'll work. Okay. So this is the layout of where we were in Layton Township. It's in a backcountry road, a long driveway here. In fact, when I got there, I thought they had left. I thought the circulators had left because they were afraid that they were going to get arrested. So I drive in, I pull around here, and I don't see them, and I pull all the way around here. And then once I get to this corner, then I see that they're actually parked off in the grass with the tailgate open towards the parking lot, and they just have a little one of those skinny tables right here, and with the petition on it. And so I parked right next to them, but I backed in so that my windshield was facing the township hall. And my daughter Emma was in the car doing her schoolwork and eating snacks. And there is a line. I'm not sure it'd be available in this picture, but it was roughly around right here. Hopefully you guys can see my mouse moving. But that's where the 100-foot mark is, that in state law, you cannot circulate a petition or pass out campaign literature or try to get somebody to vote for you, whatever, the political activity, basically, within 100 feet from the precinct. So the door to the precinct, there's two doors right here, but they had a little stand outside. And so from here to over here, that was the 100-foot line. And then I'm not sure if there was another piece painted over here. We weren't over there. And then our vehicles were way over here. We were 229. So here's showing you guys the setup that day. They had a little, some tables set up outside of where to vote. You could see the person that is, let me get these zoomed in. Okay, because it's sharing the screen. Dang it. Okay, is that one any bigger? Why is it sharing it like that? Okay. Okay, I'm gonna do it a little differently, guys. Hopefully I could figure this out in a way that you could actually benefit from it. But actually, Mike, you have things printed, right? Can you get it printed?
You just want pictures.
I want all of the exhibits right now. We only have black and white. We don't have color. Okay. He's going to print it and I'll try to talk about it. But what you'll be able to see in just a minute with the exhibits is the satellite view. There's not even any stretch of the imagination that anyone thought we were within the 100 feet. Not at all. We weren't even parked on the parking lot. We were beyond the parking lot pavement. And so when I got there, the deputy had left. He knew I was coming to talk to him about the law. He said he would be waiting for me, and he had some other call that he had to attend to, which is fine. So when he came back, though, he wasn't there to talk to me. In fact, I tried to talk to him a lot about the law, and you'll see the legal summary that I had brought with me. There is an initial one that's much shorter that the circulators had brought with them that day. And then you'll see the much longer one that I had typed up just that day on election day to try to address some of what he was saying. There were a couple other instances where different circulators at other locations were having problems. So I looked at the laws and I was, putting specifics in there and then put it all on the same sheet, put it on our website early in the day so that people had access to that and had it as a reference point. So with that being said, I got out there and it didn't take very long. And he had called in for backup because I'm really scary and all. And so then there were 3 deputies, 3 fairly decently sized, large, men, deputies. And within, 15 minutes, they were all manhandling me and arresting me for circulating the petitions because they claimed the property owner didn't want us there. The property owner was the township clerk, according to the deputies, and she said she didn't want us there. And she claimed she had an ordinance that said that she could stop us from being there. And so because I was violating that ordinance in their mind, he was going to arrest me for trespassing. So is this okay? So the that's just the affidavits. Okay. Well, it should be the very next set of things coming off the printer that you'll be able to see what the layout was and where we were. But what I also wanted to show you was when he wrote the ticket. I actually have the ticket. Let me just grab the ticket for you so you can see it instead of copies. When he wrote the ticket, okay. So this is the ticket, the actual ticket that he wrote me that day. Wow, you can actually see it better on camera than you can in person. So it is hard to read. I mean, you guys are seeing it smaller than what I'm seeing it, but anyway, it is, let's see, try to focus things for you. Okay. So can you comment? Can you put it in the comments what the link is on this video? So this is the charge, very hard to read, right? And it's super hard to read, but over here it says civil, there we go. Civil infraction is the top box, and it's very hard to read, but there's one line where that is checked. And then it says 750.552, which is the MCL for trespassing. And then it says trespass. Maybe might say trespassing. It's hard to read. There's nothing, absolutely nothing written in the remarks. And then there's this box that is obviously checked right here that says, I served a copy of the civil infraction complaint upon the defendant, and I declare under the penalties of perjury that the statements above are true to the best of my information, knowledge, and belief. And then you can see it's green, and it says civil infraction copy. Civil infraction copy. And what's important about this is that all the information on the back relates to how you handle responding to a civil infraction ticket. So what's the difference between a criminal misdemeanor and a civil infraction? Well, a lot, and the brief goes into that. One of the main differences, though, in terms of maximum punishment, when you are charged with a civil infraction, there is absolutely never any jail time. And with a criminal misdemeanor, there is. So obviously that's a huge difference for people. And the interesting thing is this well, among many things, these tickets, the law says that when an officer writes one of these tickets, they have to turn these in to their superior officer by the end of their duty, their tour of duty for the day. So whenever their shift is over, they have to turn these in. Then their superior officer, or whoever is assigned by the department, essentially, has 3 business days to turn them into the court. Why? Well, you might be able to see at the bottom here, it says within 10 days, and I'm going the wrong direction, within 10 days. So you have within 10 days from the date of this ticket to file a response with the court. Otherwise, they're going to consider you responsible for the charge that's on the ticket. This was issued on Election Day, which was November 3rd, and 10 days from the date of this ticket is, it was Friday, November 13th. So I called on Thursday, November 12th, and I wanted a court date so that I could challenge it, but also so I could have a hearing on my motion to dismiss. The problem was the officer hadn't filed a ticket yet. No one at the court had anything. They couldn't take my information down. They told me I would just have to keep calling back, and eventually when he filed it, then I would be able to get a court date. They were nice, but I was really frustrated because that's not the way the law works. And so I called the sheriff's office and I asked them what the status of the ticket was. And the person who processes the tickets was very nice. And she said she hadn't had a ticket turned in from him regarding this incident. And of course, there's an incident number. There's a ticket number on there and everything. They're trackable. And so she said he was on the night shift and she would reach out to him and see what was going on with that. And by the time we hung up, she hadn't heard back from him. So she was going to contact me back the next day. Well, by 4 p.m., right at 4 p.m. that day, I got a call from the district court that, hold on, Emma, your legs have to be off the table completely. Thank you. He had just at 4 p.m. filed the ticket in court. And, you know, it's almost at my deadline, let alone definitely past his deadline. But, and I was never served with this yet. I actually happened to get a copy of the court's copy of this ticket, but it's different than mine. Let me see here. I'm just gonna do some homemade redacting over some parts like my driver's license number and whatever. Okay. So, let's see the best way for you guys to see this. You can see this one a lot better, but it has the civil infraction crossed out and criminal misdemeanor is checked. And there's wording right here that does not appear on my ticket at all. And it says that an appearance certificate was issued. And there's some other things that are done on here that were not filled out on my copy of the ticket. But it's interesting because the way that these work, they don't have any reason to believe that I was given the green copy, because he could have written it as either, and then he's supposed to just give me the green copy if it's a civil infraction. Okay. Because their copy is just the court copy. It's the top one. So, yeah, quite interesting that he modified the ticket. So he filed it in the court as a criminal misdemeanor, which sets it down the criminal track. But he served me and actually started the case as a civil infraction. And the way Michigan law works is once he issues that ticket as a civil infraction, once he serves me with a civil infraction, that begins a civil infraction case right then and there. And so it should have gone down this road. So that's a huge problem. No officer should ever do that. Well, instead of realizing that he made a mistake, because part of the problem with that is that trespassing is not a civil infraction, it is a crime. So he tried to write me a civil infraction ticket for something that's not a civil infraction. Then at some point, I guess, maybe realized it, and then just tried to modify it and not tell me and not tell the court that he modified the ticket and just do that on his own. Well, that's a little bit illegal. And I put in there several cites to different statutes. When they use the tickets like this, they're carbon copy for a reason. They literally say copy for a reason, because you can't start any kind of lawsuit without having the other side getting a copy, an exact replica of what it is that you are filing with the court. In the United States, we have due process, and one of the main pieces to that is that you have the notice and opportunity to be heard. You have to have a notice of what kind of court case is pending against you and the opportunity to respond, an adequate opportunity to respond. Well, if you don't even know what kind of court case is pending against you or what the procedures are, how in the heck are you going to possibly respond? Well, unlike, I'm sure, any other defendant that he's ever dealt with, what did I decide to do? I decided to read our court rules. No, not just a few. All of them. So this entire book I have read from cover to cover, having things highlighted. Oh, you can tell by my tabs at the top. And I have OCD, so they're in color categories here. Yeah. I also decided, well, what other rules is he violating? I better check into this more. And I literally combed through all 831 chapters of our statutes in Michigan. And of course, you know that I've read read the entirety of the Michigan and United States Supreme Court Constitution, United States and Michigan constitutions cover to cover, as well as hundreds, if not thousands, of court cases talking about those provisions. So needless to say, they were a little naughty when they did those things. If you ever get a ticket that is later different in the court than what you were served, that's not okay. And if that has happened to you and you want to know what laws they are breaking, those are all detailed in length in my brief. So please feel free to check that out and look up those laws. Also, it's important that you are given notice. How much notice does someone really get when the ticket is not filled in at all right here? Doesn't describe the charge, and it's hard to read on the pieces that are there. That's not notice at all. Now this, besides the fact that it's different, this would have provided a little bit more notice in theory, because there's at least some words and some other things filled in and you could see it. But when you get a copy of a ticket that you can't even see, and then, mind you, I was traumatized. It was literally the most traumatizing thing of my life. And I've been through a very long miscarriage, and I've been through a divorce, and I've been through some other lovely things in my life. And that incident, even though I know the laws, even though I know the Constitution, even though it's, it was a small town area where I knew, the people that I was going to help, I knew who they were. It's not like the kind of place where you would feel unsafe or anything like that. The way that I was treated, the way that, we've seen the Constitution essentially be crumpled up on TV every night by all of these politicians, Republicans, Democrats, it doesn't matter, governors, state representatives, congressmen, all of them. And yet to be in that moment and have them say literally that they don't care about the Constitution, they don't care about the law, If I want to worry about what the law says, I can just wait and argue about that when I have my day in court. And then for them to have 3 grown men physically manhandle me to the point where I have bruising all over my body for weeks on end, contusions, swelling, and I have to go to the doctor's office, within, the very next morning to make sure that my arm isn't broken. Even showering was painful for the next few weeks because the contusion it took a long time to heal. And then the fingerprints, a lot of you saw that it was literally, there were fingerprints on my arm. There's never a reason to treat anyone like that. But did you know, here's a tidbit, if you are ever, if an officer is ever, thinking that you're violating a law that's a civil infraction, they have no right to arrest you at all. In fact, the only thing the law allows them to do is to temporarily detain you for the sole purpose of being able to essentially write up, literally the law says, a complete ticket. Complete it. They're supposed to complete it and then give it to you, and that starts the case. So if they need to do any kind of vehicle inspection, because of course a lot of tickets are because they're out, on the road. If there was an accident or something and they need to do some sort of investigation because of that, and fill out reports, that's the only reason why they're supposed to be able to detain you. We do have something called the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. I do believe it's also the same thing that's in Article 1, Section 11 of our state constitution that says you have the right to be free. Your body has the right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures. And courts have declared for many years now, decades and decades, if not centuries, it's unreasonable per se, meaning it's obviously unreasonable to search someone or to seize them, to arrest them, if you don't have a warrant. If you don't have a warrant, then a very small list of exceptions applies. And our state law, I want to say it's part of Chapter 760 of our MCLs, that's Michigan Code of Criminal Procedure, talks about the few exceptions. Now, the obvious ones are basically what it boils down to is if an officer sees you committing a crime with his own eyes, he sees you doing it, or he comes upon a scene and there's a ton of people that are, frantic and screaming, and they're like, oh, this guy is whatever. And they have reason to believe that you are committing a crime, then they can, in that moment, arrest you because they have probable cause to do so. And that has to be reasonable. All the facts, as well as their knowledge of the law and the Constitution, it has to be reasonable putting together that assessment of whether or not you should be arrested. Civil infractions, never, ever, 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 ever can you be arrested. One of the main reasons is, if you think about when I started talking about this, back up to when I said the ways that cases are different. In civil infractions, you can't go to jail. There's no jail time as a punishment. So if you get the maximum punishment under a civil infraction that the law allows, it does not include jail time. So why would an officer be able to arrest you and have physical custody of your body for any purpose whatsoever if the maximum penalty wouldn't even allow you to have your body arrested and, put into custody? That makes no sense. So this guy who swore an oath to uphold the U.S. and Michigan constitutions wrote me a civil infraction ticket saying, I served a copy of the civil infraction complaint on the defendant, swearing under penalties of perjury that the statements are true to the best of his knowledge, information, and belief, and then checked civil infraction up here. All of that he did after he had beat me up, bruised me, caused me to be bleeding on my elbow, my skin to be all ripped up from the handcuffs on my wrist, bruising and contusions on my leg, traumatizing myself, traumatizing my child, telling me that CPS was going to take my 6-year-old away because my husband was not allowed to be informed so he could come and get her, that my vehicle was going to be impounded, that everyone that showed up or that was there already to circulate the petition, every single person was going to be arrested if they stayed. Those are the kind of people that need to not be in law enforcement ever. There's no hope for people like that. You don't do that to people ever. Now, I think about this. What if I had been some sort of, crazy person running around threatening people or hurting people? Okay, they'd have a right to arrest me, right? They'd have a probable cause to arrest me. But would they have a right to tow away my vehicle, impound it, and to take away my child? No, they don't have a right to do that. My car had nothing to do with anything. In fact, if my car is a problem and I'm saying, here, I can move my car, or here, let me give my keys to somebody who can move my car, or let me call somebody who can move my car. If my location of my car is a problem, you would think they would want me to be able to be responsible and move it. But no, there was no common sense. It was all machismo and arrogance and unintelligence. It wasn't about the Constitution. It wasn't about enforcing the law. And the property owner is not the government agent. So just in case you're wondering, you can't be trespassed. You can't be charged with criminal trespassing on public property unless it's a situation where that public property has a lawful and legitimate purpose for being non-public in access. So let me put it this way. There are statutes on the books in the trespass chapters that talk about it is, I think it's still a misdemeanor. It's a misdemeanor. It's a crime anyway, to trespass upon public land that is meant for state prisons. If you are going onto the property of a state prison, like if you're in Ionia and you're hanging around the Richard Hamlin prison for no good, twiddling your thumbs, whistling, like nothing's happening. Just being on that public property is a crime because they want to ensure you're safe because of the scenario that, is there. They also want to make sure, obviously, that you're not trying to help somebody escape from custody. So there are limited examples. I want to say there might be 2 others, but the only one I could think of off the top of my head is actually swamp and wetlands, I think it is. Basically, natural resource type situation where for a variety of reasons, they don't want people on that property. It's not a ton of land from my understanding and my looking at it. But if you are on those lands, then you can be considered trespassed. And why? Well, if you look at what the cases have been, it's because the people that have been out there have been trying to do something to the property in such a manner that it's going to stop other people from being able to enjoy the property. So in other words, public property is for the benefit of the people as a whole. In fact, the Michigan Supreme Court has said that. The people as a whole, the state and all the people in it, own public property. And one person doesn't own the public property more than any other person. So in no way, shape, or form can a township trustee ever say, or a township clerk ever say, I just don't want you here, so I'm going to call the sheriff's office or the police, and they're going to come and take you away because you're trespassing, because I'm the owner and I've said you don't have a right to be here. That's not a thing. So many laws. That was just one tiny little piece of it. Okay, here's another thing. If you, is it in here? Is the resolution in here? Are you looking at what I'm looking at? Here it is. Okay. So this, let me see if I can show it to you. This is the resolution that they used that day. Notice it says resolution, and then it says resolution, and then let's see, resolved. It is hereby resolved. Also says resolution again, says resolution over here. This is not what is called an ordinance. This is called a resolution. State law, case law, anybody, Murphy's Law, they all say if you have a resolution, this is essentially, what is this analogous to? Kind of like an executive order. You know, those things that government can use to regulate how the internal operations work, but not things that can be used to regulate the people, right? That's what this is like. And law has come out time and time again saying that. I mean, we have literally laws saying if you want to regulate the people, if you want to be able to charge them with violating something that you're trying to regulate, then that needs to be done in a ordinance. Well, the deputies that day, as well as the clerk, they kept calling this an ordinance. The word ordinance doesn't appear anywhere on here. And there's a reason why it says in township law, chapters 41 and 42 of our state laws, that if you want to regulate the people, you can't do it in a resolution. You have to do it in an ordinance. Ordinances are kept in a certain place. Resolutions are not. Ordinances are essentially the laws of that community, of that township. They're the same thing as like state laws would be. And there's a procedure for recording them and making them public. And in other words, giving people notice of the rules that you're going to try to use to regulate them. That's kind of required with due process here in our country. So if you ever encounter a situation where the government, Mike, can you turn that heater off, please? Where the government ever tries to tell you that you're violating their resolution, and so you're going to be facing some sort of penalties, tell them, nah, I don't think so. That's not how it works, because it's not. Also, what's important is the words on an ordinance or a resolution. This one says, nothing in this resolution shall be construed to interfere with MCL 168.931K, which is a Michigan election law, which allows a person to disseminate campaign literature on election day when a person is beyond 100 feet from an entrance to a building in which a polling place is located. It literally says you have the right to do your political activities as long as you're more than 100 feet away, and nothing in this resolution is trying to stop that. And they literally wouldn't read it. If law enforcement, if the government officials involved, if they're not even willing to read it and talk about it with you as they're trying to say that you're violating it, there's a problem, not with you, with them. Funny thing is, law enforcement, well, this isn't a law, but let's assume that it was a law and a deputy says he doesn't care to read it. He's just going to enforce it, but he's not going to read it. Well, obviously we know that because of people like Nancy Pelosi, a lot of people like to vote for and create laws without reading them, which is bad enough. But certainly enforcing laws without reading them isn't really enforcing them. You can't enforce it unless you know what it says. And it shouldn't take an attorney to tell someone that. The statute right here, the sentence, the 168.931K, that's one sentence long. That's it. It's one sentence. So it doesn't take an attorney to read it. Obviously, I feel very impassioned about this. There's a lot of legal jargon and things in here that you know, the funny thing, this kind of ties in some stuff that we've been seeing with all of the election garbage that's going on with this and what happened. Really, what happened to me on election day, to a large degree, has nothing to do with election law. To a large degree, I mean, I wasn't violating any election laws. They didn't think election laws were relevant. In reality, the irony is that even though it was at a polling place on election day, the case against me just goes to the basics of what the Constitution is all about, where we get our rights from, what the government is allowed to do, where did they get their permission from, and where do we get our permission from? And, you know, the oath of office and all those kinds of concepts. That's really the heart of my case. The funny thing is, though, is it exposes, if you read through my motion and certainly my brief, it'll really expose for you how it's the legislature in Michigan who is solely responsible for election integrity here. The legislature is solely responsible for election integrity, but they didn't think it would be their job to do some actual investigating of all the election fraud that's been going on. They didn't think that they should call in the Dominion CEO immediately. They didn't think that they should actually allow fair and just treatment in their legislative hearings in accordance with the state constitution. You know, where the people on the hearing panel would just be able to hurl insults at the witnesses and treat them like garbage? Huh. They didn't think that there'd be a problem when you have the Wayne County Board of, oh my gosh, you know who I'm talking about. The woman with the red hair that testified as to the numbers and how the numbers didn't match up, what was in the poll books versus, you know, what Dominion systems were showing. Or, you know, dig into what happened in Antrim County, where you have 6,000 votes switched from Biden to Trump in an area that had something like 22,000 registered voters total. Those are problems. And yes, the Secretary of State is, you know, definitely on the hook. Definitely our Attorney General and our governor, they all have something, you know, in that. But let's not forget that the sole responsibility when stuff goes bad with election integrity, the sole responsibility for that is on the shoulders of our legislature. And they all pointed fingers in other directions and went, what? I don't understand. What are you saying? At any rate, of course, it is a, you know, we're into January, and some of those state reps and senators are no longer in office. We have new ones. Some of them are in office, so keep that in mind. But let's see. Also, you know, some key concepts. Due process requires that government regulation cannot be so vague that you have no idea what you're being regulated to not do. And it can't be so vague that in this instance, the way that it's written or the way that the clerk was interpreting it, she basically said if she gave the permission to be there, then that was fine. If she didn't give you the permission to be there, then you had to leave. And there's no criterion to decide whether she would give you permission. It's just at her whim. Well, that's vague, isn't it? having unfettered discretion to just do whatever you want and decide who gets to be there or who doesn't get to be there. Let's imagine that I had gotten permission that day to be there, but the recall petition was not given permission. Why would that be appropriate? That's not okay. It happens all the time, and it's not okay. It's also unconstitutional if you have a regulation that's really overbroad. So you have rights. You have a ton of rights, but certainly you have the right to free speech and to petition your government for a redress of grievances and to be able to peaceably assemble and, those kinds of things. If you have a regulation that is so overbroad that it's going to start encroaching upon those protected interests, then it's a problem. And if one of the cases says, if your regulation is going to reach a substantial amount of protected activity, then it's going to be deemed facially overbroad. It's going to be unconstitutional on its face. It doesn't even have to apply to any given situation. So I go into all the specifics on that in the brief. I probably should mention to you, in case you're a non-attorney or someone that's not quite familiar with the way that it all works. So essentially what you have is when you are asking the court to do something, you do that in a motion. So this is my motion to dismiss the complaint. In the court rules, it's a motion for summary disposition. And a typical motion is maybe 2 to 10 pages, depending on the complexity of the motion. Some of them are much shorter. This particular motion, this is double spaced, and you can see the first page has like nothing of substance on the top half. And the bottom little bit here is, again, just signature and whatnot. But this is 6 pages. And this is the motion that's just summarizing what it is, why I'm asking for certain things, and then what specifically I'm asking for. Anytime you file a motion, when it's a written motion especially, you are supposed to then file a brief. Well, this essentially was 4 motions in one. And so this brief is longer than had it been just, one brief and then separated out into 4 different motions and 4 different briefs. But this is available. You have a table of contents. For those of you who are interested in trying to use this as a template to protect your own freedoms, the PDF that we have online is done up so that you can click on each one of these and it'll take you right to that section, and then it'll help you kind of sort through this. It is long. There is 50 pages of double-spaced text in here that goes over all the laws that they were breaking. Not all of them, quite frankly, but the ones that I bothered to talk about. And there's enough in here that it'll help you be able to apply whatever context you have, whether it's a criminal case against you, whether you're just trying to, stop something from happening, whether you have a situation with your child's school or your employer or a store nearby or your local township or something that's going on, and you just want to know what is legal, what are they allowed to do. This really will be a framework for most of the things that are going on these days. Most of the things going on will be able to be addressed in some way, shape, or form by what I wrote here. We have some basic concepts. We get our rights from God. We don't get them from the government. And everybody who says, separation of church and state, those words are not in the Constitution. In fact, if someone wants to read the Constitution, they'll see that it says, first of all, let's back up. The Declaration of Independence tells us that we get our rights from our Creator, and that those are the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, just among those that we get from God. And we institute our governments among men to secure the blessings of freedom that we are given from God. And when government goes astray and doesn't serve that purpose anymore, then we have the right to take that power out of those people out of power and start over. That's what that says. I hope we're not near those times again, because obviously those were not very happy moments in our history. Well, in our Michigan Constitution, well, our US Constitution, it doesn't mention that we get our blessings from God. What it does say, though, is that we created the entire Constitution to secure our blessings of freedom. Where do you get blessings from? With a capital B. You get them from God. Our state constitution, we wanted to be a little bit more upfront about things. So we said, we, the people of the state of Michigan, grateful to Almighty God for the blessings of, you guys have heard me say it many, many times. Grateful to Almighty God for the blessings of freedom and earnestly desiring to secure these blessings undiminished to ourselves and our posterity, do hereby ordain and establish the state constitution. We get our rights from God. We create government to secure those rights, to protect those rights from government and from private entities. A private entity, whether it's a person or a business or some quasi-government type of entity, they cannot just take away your rights. So to all the people that say, oh, well, when you have like the mask requirements or whatever the situation is, you can discriminate all you want. They can do whatever they want because it's their private business. Our government is created so that our rights are protected. Our rights are not just those that we view from the lens of us versus the government, but us versus anybody. Because if I had this piece of property that I own, if my neighbor this way was allowed to just encroach upon my backyard and take land, and the government was going to say, oh, sucks to be you, but it's not our problem because the government's not taking your land, that would make no sense. If somebody was allowed to just come and take my car because, well, it's not the government taking it. So, they do with all the taxes and things they put on registration and gas tax and, whatever. But that would make no sense. So the whole framework is that we have rights, that we create our government to secure those blessings of liberty undiminished as against the government or other people or private entities. Get off the table. Do not touch the table anymore. Thank you. Or against your children, moving things around while you're trying to concentrate and explain some important concepts. And the, now I totally forgot where I was going with that. Were you listening, Mike? Are you going to get me back on track? Okay, he can't get me back on track. But what I can tell you is that the government doesn't have the same thing. The government doesn't get rights from God. A lot of people read Romans 13 and they're like, oh, well, that means that any government in place, any government official, they get their powers and their authority right from God. And so we have to follow every single thing that they do. Not at all what Romans 13 or anything else in the Bible says. In fact, let's just look at Isaiah. That book of Isaiah will tell you all about a rebellious nation where the whole government and the people in their communities were going astray. And the government had authority, right? But God was saying, you're still being rebellious, and we're going to unseat you from your authority, from your power. So at any rate, the government gets their authority from we the people. And here in Michigan, our government is even more of a directly controlled by the people scenario than in many other states. There's only a handful of states that have a ton of different, more direct democracy types of controls, with the ability to do recalls and specifically recall petitions initiated by the people, initiation of legislation petitions, like the Unlock Michigan petition was, initiations of constitutional amendment petitions, like the Restore Freedom Initiative petition was, being able to do a wide variety of things. Those are the three that stick up on the top of my mind right now. But our government, our state constitution created a form of government where we the people retain more control over government access and functions and structure and all that than in most states. And our Supreme Court has acknowledged that. So this is not designed to be where we just put people in place in government and they get to do whatever they want and act as badly as they want to. And then we just have to blindly follow them and just wait till the next election till we can get them out. That's not how this works. So keep that in mind no matter what you're going through. Those are the basics you have to start with. If you're going to just try to play their game and answer their, point for point with them and not think of the bigger picture in the meantime, then you're going to lose because they don't have the right to do the things that they're setting out to do. If you're getting, any kind of charges or penalties out of violating any of these emergency orders, they're not even legal, let alone constitutional. So you need to understand the basis of how does a government entity or government official have the right to regulate you or tell you what to do or punish you in any way. They have to get that from the Constitution in some way, shape, or form. A state law can't just make government authority, appear out of nowhere. Could be wrong on this, but I want to say it was the Ex parte Milligan case from the 1800s that I want to say it was 1865 that said every single legitimate law or regulation of the people, it either comes from the Constitution itself or from a constitutionally enacted law. So everything, the genesis on regulating the people comes from the Constitution, period. And if you work for the government, if you are elected or you're appointed or you're just somebody who's hired because you're a deputy or you are a court clerk or you are a school teacher or a janitor for the state Capitol building or anything in between, you have to have an oath of office under state law, MCL 15.151. You have to take an oath of office to uphold the U.S. and Michigan constitutions. Now, if you had no idea about that and you took the job and they made you sign some stuff, with your I don't know, what is it, I-9 paperwork and your W-4s or whatever it is that you fill out when you get a new job, and you didn't pay attention to everything and something must have been in there about that, it doesn't change anything. If you take an oath of office, Michigan constitutions, saying you don't know about the Constitution is not a defense. It's not a defense in a court of law to say, if you're charged with a crime, to go and say, I didn't know that was a crime. I didn't know the speed limit was 30. I thought it was 40. You would think that would have to be. Anyway, ignorance of the law is no excuse. If that works for people that get charged with crimes, certainly that works for those who are there to enforce the laws. And any government official or employee whatsoever, if you're not in some way, shape, or form enforcing a legitimate government law or program, then you shouldn't have a job in the first place, because government's not there just to be, right? So at any rate, that's what the main concepts are of this. I'm going to look here, see if there's a lot of law. I mean, there's a ton of law that I go through. Let's see. So those are the basic categories that I do talk about in here. I do have a hearing scheduled for February 4th at 9 a.m. It is, it's going to be in person. And I didn't even talk about, I guess, what happened this Monday when I tried to go in person and the deputies at the door, they knew I was coming. They were not acting as security to stop literally anybody else from entering the building. But we watched them as they watched my car approaching and parking, and as they had their eye on me, and then, well, the one did, and then he had the other deputy come out, and they're literally staring me down before we even walk up to the building. And then they were threatening to not even let me in the building because I can't wear a mask. And then they did not let my husband in the building. They did not let Lori in the building, but they let in other people that they didn't think were with me or that really weren't with me. And they weren't wearing masks. Interesting. Or when the other attorney, this older guy who walked in behind me, had his bar card, and he, goes to show the sheriff, as is customary in a lot of communities where, you get used to what's what. And, a lot of deputies often will work the door at a courthouse. He put up his card and they said, "Oh, well, you can't come in without a mask. Do you have one?" And the look on his face was one of utter shock. Like, I come here every day. I got to wear a mask today? It was priceless. I'm just going to say that. It was priceless. So, needless to say, they also, I was originally given this last Monday as my hearing date for this motion. And a couple weeks ago, I noticed it wasn't on the court's calendar online. So I called and asked, and I was told after a series of people I had to speak with that the judge said I was not allowed to have a motion hearing before my arraignment. Funny thing is, I was given an arraignment date over 2 months after the incident, and 2 months after, when the ticket was even filed in the court. 2 months for an arraignment for me to say whether I plead guilty or not. By the way, I wasn't even given a chance to say whether I pled guilty. He never even asked me and allowed me to answer. He asked me other things and I answered those. And at one point he just said, "Well, based on everything that has been said here, I'm going to take the defendant to be pleading not guilty today," and then just rambled on. And I thought, that's strange. I'm pretty sure I should be allowed to speak for myself, but apparently not. And I asked for a hearing on a motion to dismiss. And I had to say it multiple times before it was finally said, "Okay, yep, she can have a hearing." So February 4th at 9 a.m., I have my motion hearing. And after that, I have a pretrial conference. Hopefully the motion hearing will resolve everything once and for all. I'd hate to have to appeal it to the circuit court and then to the Court of Appeals, but we'll see. So please stay tuned for that. And please do check out these documents. The 6-page one is the summary, but if you're looking for something that can help you in a particular situation, you do need to look at this. You need to read it. I had several non-attorneys read it. In fact, I didn't have any attorneys read it besides myself. So I trust that you'll be able to get through it. It's not going to be necessarily like easy reading, like you just picked up a Newsweek article and you're going to read it for 5 minutes and understand everything in there. You got to have some time to think about it. But do make sure that you do that, because it can serve as a very good template to be able to understand the different issues that you might be encountering. Or just to better understand the issues that we're all encountering that are going on in our state and in our country right now. And yes, this was a longer video. And yes, the document is long. Am I going to give you the, a 1-pager summary on this? No. So if anybody has been asking in the comments or plans to ask in the comments, not going to happen. And if anybody wants to try to write a summary of that, it's not going to be, there's a table of contents. If you want to have the 1-page, that's the table of contents. Is that really going to give you a good understanding of what's all in here and what your rights are? No. If you don't want to take the time to read about your rights, if you don't want to take the time to study it and look at that, there's not much I could do for you anyway. So please don't ask me that. I get asked that in almost every video. So I know it's been a while since I've been on. I do want to give you some updates as well as some other information. So what I'm actually going to do, though, is I'm going to cut out from this particular video, and then I'm going to go in and do a brief video. I'm going to do some better screen sharing that's not minimized, so I can show you some resources on how to find some of these things. Definitely, if you're someone who's going to really read this brief and read the motion and try to figure out, look at some laws yourself and be able to use them as actual tools to, you know, understand things better and handle situations that you're going through, you probably do want to check it out. So I will go ahead and come right back in just a moment, and we'll get started with that. Did you see? Were you watching any questions? If there were any questions
recently, so I don't.
Were there any that you saw that I need to answer?
No, when I was looking.
Okay. All right. So, all right. Well, I hope you all were able to take something very either informational or inspiring or something out of this. And I will see you hopefully in just a few minutes for the update and other information that I have to give to you guys. And my husband did say that all of these documents are now available on our website on restorefreedomkh.com. If you go to resources and then documents, I think it's called Documents Katherine has filed in court or something like that. They're available there. And we do post them in reverse chronological. So they'll be the very first ones that you'll see. And hopefully you won't have any problems being able to download them or anything. They are a little bit larger files, but it'll all be there for you to see. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.